how was it that you forgot your abuse? Was it, do you have any ways of thinking that this is why I forgot? Katie?
My abuser actually told me immediately after the abuse, forget this ever happened. Yeah.
So did mine. I was taught that if I ever mentioned it again, that I would have to go to the crazy house.
Hmm?
So I had to forget it, he said. Yeah,
Yes.
I had to.
We would get in trouble, is what I was told.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yes.
And Rachel, you were, tell what happened regarding you falling and
Yeah, he told me that because I part of my knowing that it wasn't the first time was I'm pretty sure I'd gotten away from him because this time my parents were gone. He told me to not bother because they'd left me with him, and then he told me that I was going to bleed because I fell when I was still trying to get away from him right after he'd raped me. And then he told me to not bother telling anybody because I would just be annoying. And when I remembered that, I realized why I've always had such an intense sense in like fear of being annoying to people. Um, but I remembered it was like I know I forgot because it got to the point where like I didn't want to look at him anymore. I didn't want to hear what was going on, and I looked away during it. And that was actually my first flashback, was the object that I focused on instead of looking at him. And so it was, they say from what I've learned, if it's inescapable, that's what helps you disassociate. And it was when I realized I couldn't fight anymore that I started to disassociate.
Yep.
and what your mom found a symptom, found a sign that she didn't realize was a sign. Tell about that.
A memory that I always had was that I had dripped blood across the kitchen floor and then saw blood on the toilet paper. And it must have been probably right after, because I was coming in from outside to go to the bathroom. And so I must not have still had my underwear on. Um, so I remember being like super scared, cleaning up the blood. But my mom tells me, and I don't remember this, but my mom tells me that that night she saw blood in my underwear, and asked me what had happened. And I said I fell. And because that's what he told me was going to happen. And she said she figured I fell on the bike, or like a bike, because I used to ride it all the time. And they thought you could break your hymen by riding a bike back then. She's like, I didn't think anything of it. And apparently she was asked by a pastor when I was like 8, and then again when I was a teenager, if I had ever been abused. And just from different things that my behavior, some symptoms that I had. And they even asked me the second time, and I said no, because I didn't remember it. I was 12 or something like that. And I was like, I'd remember if something like that happened. But they didn't ask me when I was 8. The first time he asked them. But yeah, they figured it broke on a bicycle.
Oh.
That's not the first time I've heard the bicycle story.
Meaning,
Maria?
Yeah, and I just want to say nobody ever told me not to say anything. So for some reason, my own brain did that. Like, and I said earlier, I tried to reach out to my mother and I didn't get the response I was expecting. So that was enough for me.
And Vanessa, did the in the military, when you were raped, did the officer tell you not to tell anyone, or do you know?
Told me that nobody would believe me, and I believed him, and I still today didn't think anybody would believe me. So I intentionally had to suppress the memory because we still had to work together. I still had to see him every day, and that was my way of really being able to get through it.
I was born addicted to drugs, and my family kept me, or our whole family, on drugs. We had white crosses on the coffee table. It was very accessible to us. And I truly believe today that the drugs actually saved my life.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
And I've been sober since 1986. So
Good for you. And several people have raised their hand. Brenda,
Yeah, the way my brothers did it was my mom and dad worked the midnight shift and they will lock me outside the door, especially when it was thunder and lightning. And they would tell me, you better forget whatever happened to me. So they will lock me outside, all through the night, especially when it's thunder and lightning. So I kept it to myself because I didn't want to stay outside all night long. So I kept it to myself.
hmm. Yeah, that is so sad because you feel like you had a good mom and dad, right?
Yes,
So
my brothers were maybe 10 years older than me, so they, took care of the house while my mom and dad worked. Cause I had two parents there. I had loving parents though, but I was too afraid to tell my mom and dad. I was too afraid to tell my dad because I know my dad would kill them, so I couldn't tell them.
Edie, did you have your hand raised? I don't know. No, it was your cat's tail was raised. Go ahead, Mike.
For me, it was a mixture, mostly sedation. There's a little bit of gaslighting also. That I know one Christmas I got a big giant gorilla stuffed animal, but it was like almost as large as I was. And then I think if I ever woke up with a bad dream of someone attacking me, it's like, oh no, that was just your gorilla. So yeah, looking back, it's like, oh, that's why I got a gorilla. So
Mm,
yeah,
that's
but
me.
mostly sedation for sure.
Mhm. And Darlene,
No,
you
I don't
oh,
think the media is.
go ahead, Lynn.
I don't think the media has ever done a story on how perps silence their victims after they commit a crime against them. No one,
Correct.
I keep thinking that no one thinks that the children are silenced. They just think, oh, they probably cannot possibly repress a memory like that.
Well, we've got
Yeah,
some writers here, so maybe someone will. Darlene.
Yeah, I got several different reasons why I think I did. It's not just a matter of just one. One of it was from early age, we learned that children were to be seen and not heard.
correct.
And then, of course, with the child pornography stuff, they had me, they already were splitting my personality into different people for the
Correct.
action. They were already grooming me to do that. The traumatic brain injuries that they did. And even the one time that my sibling said with a police officer, about my daddy shooting at me, and then the police officer taking my dad, going to take me to my father. And the police officer said, well, he said you fell in blackberry bushes, all them bad welts and cuts all over your body. And so we better not ever hear you, or we'll end up arresting you. So then I had to, they kind of like silenced me.
Yeah,
And
you had horrible experiences with the police. I remember that. And Juanita, you also, as far as them not taking action, right?
Yeah, twice I've reported and twice it's come to nothing. I don't feel like they've actually taken it seriously. In fact, I even had this second time, which is reporting one of the rapes that I'd suffered. The policewoman laughed because the
Yeah.
circumstances were so unusual, but then she should be used, that's her job, to hear
Yeah,
unusual
that's
things.
true.
She's been
That's
raped
true.
inside a police cell. So but yeah, she found that's despicable. It's like it feels like no hope, which is like the worst thing you could do to anybody.
And I'm determined to end this on a hopeful note. So let's see, what can we I'm
we
just
all survived.
so many
We
good.
survived.
We all survived. And Mike, you just got a new home, right? You just got your first home recently. And
Yep.
yeah, yeah. And I'm so glad you all got to meet each other because I'd gotten to meet each of you when I interviewed you. I'm glad you got to know each other. What a nice group of people we are.